Thank you. So, I'm really happy that I got a chance to follow up on Jacob because it's an interesting time at Microsoft, and I kind of relate very closely to his experiences because I started at Microsoft more or less around the time that he did. And the interesting thing is that, I'm going to tell you a quick story. I left Microsoft 17 months ago. I was the Internet Explorer evangelist at that time. I was the guy going out there and speaking with web developers about Internet Explorer. In some cases, it was a really good conversation. We got great feedback. Sometimes it wasn't all that great, I'm sure. And in many cases, this is what you guys thought at Microsoft. All right, we were the Death Star, and it was really a brutal time in that sense. Um, so I did leave, but I didn't leave Microsoft because I felt there was anything wrong with it. I felt I got a great job opportunity, and while I'm there and I'm doing great, everything's going well, I get a call from the engineering team. And they're like, hey, we're putting the band back together. I'm like, what? We're putting the band back together. And they start telling me a story about this new browser that they're going to build. I'm like, okay. It piqued my interest and piqued my interest, and I kept going. And finally, I was convinced. I was lured by what they said. And I came back to Microsoft a year ago. I think, in fact, what's today's date? The 25th? So about a year ago, yeah, almost a year ago, I came back to Microsoft to help them talk about this new browser and the new web strategy because I felt that we were a very different Microsoft. We are freaking ninja cats on fire-breathing unicorns, all right? And it's an awesome time. It is. It's cool. Look at that cat. Tell me that cat's not awesome. Look at that unicorn just going out there saying, come on, mess with me, all right? And it's a cool time. But, one of the things that I did tell Microsoft is that, look, if I'm going to come back, though, I can't be disingenuous. If I'm going to speak with the web developers and I'm going to talk to them about the things that we're doing, I need to be able to talk to them on their terms. I need to understand their pain points, their friction, the things that make them tick. Because I know that a lot of you use machines just like this. How many of you use a Mac? Uh, how many use Linux? So it's a nice division, but a lot of you use something other than Windows. And that was important to me. How can I be genuine with you guys? How can I talk to you about the pain that you're suffering, or the development workflows that you're using, or the concept that you're thinking about, and the tooling that you're using without actually using a machine that you're using day in and day out? And so if you look closely at that machine, and I lift up this machine, what do you see? Just so you'll know, I came back to Microsoft and said, if I'm going to work here, I need to have a MacBook. This is my Microsoft-issued MacBook. And this was a very telling time to me. This told me that Microsoft was serious about the web. They were serious about making sure that web developers were successful. And I felt good about that. I felt like they really cared about the modern web developer who is on a MacBook, who might be using variants of Linux. And most of all, I know that all of you think in these terms. You want to build cross-browser sites. This is what's really important to you guys. But in most cases, this is what you're experiencing. All right? You're in this world where you're like, all right, what do I do with IE, man? IE is killing me, but I can't test it effectively. And now we throw in another browser, and you're probably saying, okay, great. And this is actually a web developer that I found. I took a video of him, and he was pissed off because he had to test for Microsoft Edge and Internet Explorer. And so, I'm trying to solve this for you guys. I'm trying to figure out a way to make it easier for you guys so you don't bang on the keyboard and do this. So, when that happens, I get these questions. Why can't we kill off IE? Well, I have a term. I coined it. It's trademarked, so back off. I call it old IE PTSD. All right? I feel for you guys because I know that IE for a very long time has caused some pain. But you know what? It's getting better. That pain, though, caused things like this. All right? This is a very popular meme where IE was the laggard behind. And then, of course, you get things like this. All right? Now, can Chrome do that? No. But the bottom line is this. What I found is that a lot of the pain for IE was due to what's called lack of feature knowledge within the community. And while I feel that part of that is responsibility of web developers to stay on top of what's happening, a bigger responsibility is us for not getting the information out to you guys that you need to be successful. That's where we think we need to continue to improve. And that's why I'm glad that Jacob's here, because for a very long time, the engineering team wasn't a very vocal part of the community. I see Jacob, and I see Kirill, and I see all these guys from the engineering team out there speaking at conferences, being vocal on social media, and that was something that wasn't there when I was at Microsoft several years ago. It's a very different time. And when you look at the features that we have, and this is an IE11, mind you, this is not even Microsoft Edge. I'm constantly floored when web developers ask me, well, I didn't know you support, or tell me they didn't know we supported app cache, or we supported the file API, or even something like drag and drop. Again, it reinforces the message that we need to do better, because we do have great tooling. Why should we drop our browser when we do have these great features? We have great tooling. And to be honest, I also think it's important that we have multiple reference implementations of browsers. Do you guys want to go back to a single browser? What happened the last time we had a single dominant browser in this world? Mind you, I work for Microsoft and I'm asking that question. Okay? Do you guys want to go back to that? Whether it's WebKit, whether it's Blink, whether it's our, Edge HTML, or whether it's Gecko? I don't. I want to have multiple browser vendors fighting with each other to make sure that we all have the best browsing experience possible. And as developers, it's our responsibility to continue to advocate for that. It's not just telling the vendors do this. We have to be advocates for that in the community, and we have to demand that. So that's why I think it's important to have an IE, to have an MS Edge. I want those out there to constantly push Google and to constantly push Mozilla. I want that kind of like little tension going on. That means better features for all of us. Now, bottom line is knowledge is power, and this is where you guys have homework to do right now. So I'm going to ask you guys to either open up your tablets, your laptops, or get a pen and paper because I want you to write down some stuff. Because I never want to hear anybody in this room say, I never shared information with you guys. All right? Because we will argue. All right? First one is, if you want the most comprehensive amount of information about our browser, you need to go to dev.modern.ie. This is our new Microsoft Edge dev portal, and this is the source where you should be going to understand what's happening within Microsoft Edge, get tools that we are creating to help you guys test our browsers, and also to kind of interact with the community. Next, and on there, by the way, is our roadmap. Jacob kind of mentioned about that. I'm actually going to show it a little bit later on, but this is where our roadmap. If you want to know where Microsoft Edge is going, well, you need to go to dev.modern.ie. This is where that roadmap is. In addition, many of you still have to support Internet Explorer. Well, this is something that's kind of important. These are the IE developer guides for the various versions of Microsoft Internet Explorer. This is something that so many people don't know about, and again, it's our fault for not getting it out to you. So I created this bit.ly URL to make it easy for you guys to write it down and have that resource available. In addition, compatibility has always been one of the issues that developers have found, especially when you go from version to version. Well, we have something called the IE Compatibility Cookbook. Again, here's a short URL for you guys to be able to hit it directly. Lastly, we have really good developer tools. Our tools are constantly evolving. We are working really hard to make them awesome. And you guys should know how to use them. You should know about the features we have in there. And that's why I want you to go to this URL, which is going to tell you what our features are and how to leverage them when you're doing your debugging. Okay? So again, everybody got them? Cool? All right. I don't want to hear you say, you didn't give me the information, Ray. Plus, I'll put my slides up later on, okay, to make sure you got this. Now, why should you test IE? Very simple. Whether you use net market share, which shows that IE's market share is 55%, or whether you use stat counter, which shows it at 19%, at the bare minimum, you have 19% of the internet using Internet Explorer. Now, obviously, if your site doesn't get Internet Explorer traffic, well, that's a decision that you can make at that point. But this is a pretty telling graph. And mind you, I'm using both because I don't want this to be skewed. All right? I know Microsoft sometimes uses this one. I know some of our competitors use this one, and I really don't care which one you use. What I want to drive home is that at least almost 20% of the internet will use some version of Internet Explorer, and that's a pretty big number to think about. So when I get that question asked, I think this drives the point home. Now, what impresses me more is this. This is what should make you guys happy. In this graph, what it's showing is that Internet Explorer 11, which is our most modern version, stable version of our browser, this is actually climbing up. That's great, because that tells me that Internet Explorer 8, and here's, I think, 9, are going down. I like that. That makes me happy, and I think you guys are going to be happy about that, right? All right, I can't hear you. All right, good. All right, now, this is net market share. Just to make sure I'm not skewed, here's stat counter. Again, stat counter showing a trend up for IE11, a trend down for IE8. That makes me happy, and I'll tell you why. Because earlier this year, we announced this. We are giving every user of Windows 7, 8, and 8.1 a free upgrade to Windows 10. The default browser that's shipping with Windows 10 is Microsoft Edge, our new standards-based, awesome browser that Jacob just talked about. So what that means is that all those people that are on Windows 7, 8, and 8.1 using IE11, some of them might be on IE10, are now going to get prompted to upgrade to Windows 10, and a large number of them are going to use it. And from telemetry that we've captured over the years, we know that at the moment that a user tests an application, there's a very high likelihood that they're going to actually tinker with it. Well, this is a brand new browser. It's not your mom and dad's Internet Explorer. They're going to say, oh, this is pretty cool. And they're going to say, this is pretty fast. And if they start comparing it to other stuff, they might actually switch. I remember, hey, I was on IE, I think it was IE 6 or 7 when Mozilla Firefox came out. And I switched. And then, hey, Chrome came out. And Chrome was badass. And I switched from Mozilla Firefox to Chrome. So the likelihood that somebody could switch is very high. So you guys should be happy that this is happening, because those users that have been paining you because they're on old Internet Explorer will likely go to this. That's pretty exciting. And we can hopefully sunset Internet Explorer in the near future. That make you happy? All right. Now, this is the question I think most of you are asking. How do you test IE and Microsoft Edge? And that's a great question. And so this is where I want to make sure that I can drive home the point that we have tools in place that make this fairly easy for you. We are trying to constantly lower the friction for you guys to test Internet Explorer and certainly Microsoft Edge. The first one is the Microsoft Edge Dev Portal. Remember, dev.modern.ie. This is the place you should be going to, because this is where we have some very cool tools, including Remote IE, a bunch of virtual machines for every version of Internet Explorer we have. We have tools like tools that will do site scans and show you different compatibility issues, and also do screenshots across multiple form factors. So you definitely want to go there. The second one is Browser Stack. Now, Browser Stack is a virtualization service. It's a paid service, but the way I look at this, and a lot of people say, oh God, I have to pay money for it. Well, yeah. Listen, it takes a lot of money to get a service like Browser Stack going. And if it costs $20, $30 for you guys to be able to do a really awesome job, I think that's worth the investment, especially when we invest $2,000 or $3,000 in these. So what's $20 a month in the grand scheme of things? You know what I mean? So I actually like that. Sorry, move forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop out of this real quick, and let me show you what it looks like. All right? So first of all, let's head on over. Well, come on. I lost my See, this wouldn't have happened on a Windows machine. Sorry, I couldn't resist that, okay? Let me see what's happening here. All right. Here, I'll just do this. All right. So I'm going to go into my VM. This is modern.ie, or what was formerly called modern.ie. I'm still kind of getting over the naming convention, because we changed it over to the Microsoft Microsoft Edge Dev Portal. And this is where we're kind of consolidating all the information about our new browser and also all the tooling that we have. So as I mentioned, you can go here, and here's the platform status. The cool thing about this is that if you want to understand what's coming in Microsoft Edge, if there's a feature that you're really excited about, you can get kind of an idea of where we're at. You can figure out, all right, application cache, app cache is going to be in Edge when it deploys. We're going to have ASM as well. We're going to have, I don't know, let's say box alignment. Well, that's under consideration. At least you have an understanding of what the Internet Explorer team and the Microsoft Edge team are thinking about features for the future of the browser. This also gives you an opportunity to head on over to user voice, like Jacob mentioned, and vote up the things that are important to you. If you see something that's under consideration and you think it's really high priority, well, we're going to let the users kind of vote on that. We're trying to prioritize things based on resources and the things that we can deliver. But if you feel that something's really important and you're passionate about it, then go to the user voice section and vote it up. And again, if enough people do it, then obviously it goes up in priority. Now, the other really cool section is here where it says tools. Tooling is one of the things that developers are always looking for to lower the friction to testing Internet Explorer. The first resource I always recommend is the virtual machines. How many of you have used the virtual machines on this site before? A couple of you. I want to make sure all of you know that you can go here, and whether you're on a Windows machine, Mac, or Linux, you can have a virtual machine for any Internet Explorer version we've ever produced. Well, from IE6 forward. Okay? So I'm on a Mac. I use Parallels. Well, I can go here and say I want to test IE6 on XP. I'm a glutton for punishment, and I can run it on Parallels, and I can download a virtual machine. You don't have to buy Windows XP. We have it there. We gave it to you. Yeah, after 90 days, you have to just kind of refresh it. Just take a snapshot and restart that snapshot. But the bottom line, it's there. So one of the things that we always heard was we have to spend money to buy a license of Windows. Okay, we got it. Well, what we did was we created virtual machines to make it easier so you don't have to spend the money. We don't want you to have that friction. We don't want that to be something that's going to block you from doing your job effectively. So it's there. And you can do it for any version. And again, this is for Windows and for Linux as well. So you can go here, and there's VirtualBox. All right, so you have a lot of great tooling here. The other one is called Remote IE. Now, one of the things that most people want is a native version of Internet Explorer on OS 10, and that's not coming anytime soon. All right, we tried that once. We decided we're not going to try it again. All right, but we do have something called Remote IE, and the cool thing with Remote IE is that it gives you a virtualized version of Internet Explorer. So if I go here, I'll launch it. You have to sign up for it. Kicks off a session, and when it brings it here, give me a second while it loads up. It has to provision it because it has to actually go out to Azure, and it gives me a virtualized version. Come on, come on. It's almost there. Boom, there it goes. A virtualized version of Internet Explorer. Now, this is great when you're testing a staging or production site. This is awesome. And you can go here, and I can say, all right, I want to go to, I don't know, Microsoft.com. And it'll actually render it out. You have access to the tooling as well. So you can go here to the F12 developer tools. They'll pop up as well. So you have access to all this great information. Now, the drawback to this is that you don't have access to your local machine. And as developers, what are we testing on? Our local machines most of the time. It's great to be able to test staging and production, but we're working day in and day out on our local machine. So I thought about this long and hard because it was kind of frustrating me that we couldn't do this. And I found a tool called ngrok. And ngrok creates a little proxy on your local machine. So let me go here real quick. I'm going to go to a local site that I have. It's I do some CrossFit, and so I was helping a buddy of mine with a site. So let me crank this up. HTTP server. All right, and I'll go here, and I'll bring it up here on Chrome, and I'll go localhost 8080, and it'll bring up my site. All right, little site, one-pager type of thing. It's a thing that he's trying to sell, which is awesome. I want that to render now in Internet Explorer, this virtualized version that I have here using Remote IE. Well, I can't do that because I can't access localhost. I can't go here and say localhost :8080. It just won't work. But what I can do is I can go here to and use ngrok. And in ngrok, it'll create a proxy for me. So I can say ngrok HTTP 8080. It'll crank up and it gives me this URL right here, which I can now copy, bring it over here. Come on. Yep. Never fails on a demo. All right. I can copy that and bring it into there, and it will work. There we go. Okay. There we go. It's virtualized. Well, come on. What's that? Yeah. Come on. Yeah, it figures. Anyways, it'll work, I promise you. It's awesome, all right? But basically, with that, what I can do is I can create a proxy that will actually go to my local site on my machine. So I can do that even in BrowserStack. So let's close this down, and I'm actually going to bring up BrowserStack, all right? Which is why I actually recommend BrowserStack most of the time. I think BrowserStack is actually a really cool service. So if I go to the BrowserStack dashboard and I click on here, what it does is it actually cranks up a session, and they have a whole virtualized rack of IEs, or its service is amazing. And the cool thing about this is, notice that I'm using localhost 8080 in there. Remember the session that I had before. But the cool thing about this is that they also have an extension that works to act as that proxy. I don't need ngrok running in order to do this. In fact, let me close it down because you guys are probably going to hack me sooner or later. And I can go here and notice that this is kind of like an inception thing because I got Chrome running with Internet Explorer inside of Chrome. It's like this weird vibe thing. All right. But the cool thing is that it continues to run. My local site is running here because BrowserStack gives you it's a Google Chrome extension and also a Firefox add-on that allows you to create that proxy automatically. So this is why I recommend BrowserStack. It's awesome. It's a very stable service, and they've been around for a while, and they offer the tools to make things substantially easier. And not only that, if you look at what they offer, let me just go back here real quick. Let me stop this. Not only do they offer Internet Explorer, they offer all these different versions. And the cool thing is they break it down by OS version. So if I go to, here's 8.1, Windows 8, Windows 7, I can go to Yosemite, Mavericks, and the browser versions change according to your OS. So to me, this is why it's worth the cost. All right, so let's close this down. Close it down, and let's go back to my slides. All right. So we also have WebDriver for IE11. If you're into Selenium, you're using that on a regular basis, we have that available. And we're working on WebDriver for Microsoft Edge as well. Now, Microsoft Edge itself, how do we test that out? Well, the best way to do that right now is through going to insider.windows.com and downloading the ISO. We have an ISO. It's part of our Insider preview program. Jacob mentioned that as well. It's a great program because you sign up with a live ID and you're going to get the flights constantly. You're going to get the updates that people are going to allow you to see what's coming in the newer releases of Windows 10 and of course Microsoft Edge. So this is going to be the best place for you to do it, and it's really simple to create a VM. Listen, I live in a world of VMs as well because I have a Mac, and my VMs are Windows 8.1. I have an IE8 version VM, and I also have one for Windows 10. I want to make sure that I can cover everything accordingly. And I also want to make sure I can work in OS 10 and be able to relate to you guys. Make sure I understand that pain, the friction and the pain that you guys are suffering. And also take advantage of some of the cool tools that are coming out. Now, the other way of doing it is BrowserStack. Now, BrowserStack announced support for Microsoft Edge recently. It's still a little shaky. I'm glad they have it, but I'm not recommending you immediately to go to it. It's an option. Try it out. But I haven't found it to be 100% stable just yet. They're still working some bugs out, but I'm glad that it's there because that's another option for you guys to test out the new browser without having to install a VM. I know VMs are big. I have a couple of them that are like 20 to 60 gigs. That's a lot of space. So if you're concerned about that, then I would recommend something like BrowserStack. Now, what about mobile? Well, mobile is an interesting conundrum. I think a lot of people suffer through that. To me, I still think Google Chrome and Mozilla have a great solution because they allow remote debugging through, it's a proprietary proxy or protocol that they created so that you can use their developer tools to connect to mobile devices. And that's awesome. I actually think that's really great, and I'm hoping that we'll move along in that path as well. But in the interim, there's a couple solutions you can start looking at, especially if you're going to test out on Windows Phone and you want to test out Microsoft Edge on Windows Phone. The first one is Winery. Now, Winery is really cool because it allows you to go ahead and inject some code into a web page, and it could be just a script tag that you inject and then you bring it up, and it'll actually let you inspect the whole DOM tree. It's actually really cool, and you can check out some of the runtime information, some of the networking information, and I'll show it to you in a little bit. The other one that I recommend is Vorlon.js. This is created by my teammate, David Coutu. And the reason I recommend Vorlon is because we are actively developing this. We're constantly adding new features to it. We feel it's really important because we need to kind of create, we need to fill that gap of remote debugging. And we want something that's going to solve this problem. Vorlon's doing a really good job because it provides an extensible system. It's cross-platform. We're not trying to focus solely on Windows. We're trying to build something that all developers can leverage. It's leveraging Node.js and Socket.io. And the cool thing is it has a plugin ecosystem. So we've already created some plugins that solve some of the issues, but we also are taking plugins in. So this gives you an opportunity to kind of contribute to this open source project and fill in some of the gaps that you think are missing from Vorlon. So how many of you use Winery in the past for remote debugging? All right, a few of you. The thing with Winery is, and it doesn't seem to be in active development, so we want something that will continue to be evolving. And this is what we think will be a good solution. So we want you to go there. So let's take a look at that real quick. And let's see. All right. So here's my local site. And let me go ahead and crank up Winery. And Winery I think it's, let me, bear with me 1 second. Yeah, okay. And, boop, and dash dash HTTP ports. And I'm going to listen to it on 8081. All right. So when I do that, I'll go to localhost 8081. Bring that up here. And I'm going to break this out into 2 different windows. Bear with me 1 second. I love Divi. It's so awesome. All right. So what this does is basically, it gives you a panel. When you come here, Winery immediately creates a little bookmarklet. And that bookmarklet allows you to inject the Winery code that it needs inside a web page to actually kind of inspect the web page and show you all those DOM elements, all the things that it needs to kind of interact with the web page. I've already gone ahead and done that. I've taken this bookmarklet, I put it up here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the console. I'll click on this. It'll come up. Most of you are going to be very familiar with this UI because this UI was part of WebKit. That's how it got its start. So most of you are going to be very familiar with the way this looks. Now, the cool thing is once I go here and I click on this little bookmarklet, boom, the whole entire DOM tree shows up. Now imagine this for remote debugging. This is incredibly useful because you don't have a lot of remote tools to work with on a tablet device, on many phones. So this gives you another option to kind of work from. All right. And if I go in here, notice that as I hovered over some things, it actually goes ahead and changes it. So if I expand this out, and I don't know, here's the right repetition to represent. I'll double click on this and say the right rep for Ray. And notice that it immediately changed the text. So you have immediate feedback about the work that you're doing. And I've tried to work with some of the things like the network aspect of it to see some of the network assets that are coming across. This is where I'm finding some limitations. This is where I'm seeing that perhaps Winery is not being actively developed, and I'm finding some blockers there. This is why I'm kind of cautious about Winery, but I still think it's a great tool, and their elements inspection is fantastic. I love it. Now, the other tool that I actually use is called Vorlon, and this is the one by my buddy. And Vorlon is just an NPM module, so I'll go ahead and run it. And it starts listening on port 1337. Now, he did a little update, what was it, last night, so I'm a little scared right now. But let's see what happens, all right? Yes, so here's Vorlon, and so pretty interface. Definitely he's a developer, I can tell you that, because I can see it. And the one thing about Vorlon is it doesn't have that cool little bookmarklet. You're going to have to do a little bit of manual work, and it's not that big of a deal. Now I'm going to whip out our new awesome code editor, Visual Studio Code. Wait, let me do my Vanna White. Oh, come on, guys, it's a cheap laugh. Give me a break. All right. Jeez. Anyways, you have to insert a small snippet of code right here, this little JavaScript code. And the reason is because that's what's going to allow the socket I/O communication between your app and that Vorlon server. Once you've added that in and you save the page, all you got to do is reload and Command-R, and there it is right here. This is the app. Now I click on that, and boom, immediately I have all my DOM tree available to me. Plus I have a console. Let me move it out here because I know it's hard to see. Let me expand this out. There's a whole lot of information available. Notice that we give you all the styles. We'll give you the layout information, computer styles, all that fun stuff, and you can interact with that. The one thing I want to stress about Vorlon is that it is constantly evolving. There's things that Winery still has that Vorlon doesn't, and we're working on that. We're trying to make it better. But the one thing that I can say is awesome is the fact that all these things here, the DOM Explorer, the Object Explorer, XHR, Network Monitor, these were all plugins that have been developed and contributed to the ecosystem in some fashion. That means that you guys can now affect how this project progresses. That means you guys can contribute to a Microsoft open source project. Think about what I just said, a Microsoft open source project. All right. So that's a pretty big deal, guys. It's a pretty big, it's a fundamental shift at Microsoft. And this is one of the reasons that I did come back, because it got me excited that we're being more transparent with the things that we're trying to accomplish. So definitely check out Vorlon. I don't want to kind of sit here and go through this because that's not what I'm trying to talk about. I want you guys to have the information, and I want you guys to experiment, but most of all, I want you to be involved and contribute. And offer, even if it's just simple feedback, saying, I want Vorlon to have this. That's fine. We want that feedback. But please offer it to us because this is something that's really important to us. Yeah, just go to the Vorlon.js site and we have a GitHub repo and you can submit an issue on that. And you know what? If you want to contribute, do a pull request too. It's there for you, so definitely do it, please. All right. Carry on. Now, another option for you for mobile kind of remote debugging is Adobe Edge Inspect. I haven't used it. I actually have it loaded. I'm looking at it. It's a little bleh, but it's there. Check it out. Some people swear by it. I'm not a fan, but I want to list it because, you guys might find it incredibly useful. The other one that I do want to test is GhostLab. Now, it's a paid service, but it offers a boatload of functionality from what I'm reading on the site. So I got to test that out. It's actually really cool. How many of you would really want a headless IE? Okay, a couple of you. All right, if you're using any type of continuous integration, you want to make your testing substantially easier for IE, then a headless IE would actually be really good. We're working on that. And I know there's headless versions of WebKit, and I believe Blink has headless version. We're working on that. So that way you can incorporate it into things like Phantom.js or some other CI solutions. But the main thing is that we're continuously improving. We're really working hard to make an awesome browser. We're really working hard to be more transparent. But most importantly, we're really working hard to listen to the community. I've never seen so many people at Microsoft focused on our browser. I was there for 3.5 years. I'm back at Microsoft now. During the 3.5 years, they were okay. But in this 1 year that I've been back, I have been floored by the amount of focus and resources being thrown at our web browser experience. It's amazing. So when I tell you that we're really making a concerted effort to produce an awesome standards-based browser, I'm telling you the truth. This is awesome. And I would urge you to try it out yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Go to insider.windows.com and download the ISO and test out the browser. You can test it for free right now. Not only that, you're going to want to test it because when we push out Windows 10, there's going to be a boatload of users at least trying out the browser. And even if 50% of those users switch to Microsoft Edge, that's going to be a lot of people coming to your site in Microsoft Edge. So you want to make sure that you're ready for that. Some additional resources that you want to take a look at are going to be, of course, dev.modern.ie. That's the go-to place for you guys to check out information on Microsoft Edge. You're also going to want to keep an eye on the Microsoft Edge blog. This is where guys like Jacob are constantly talking about the browser, whether it's rendering engine, whether it's new features we're producing. This is where we kind of communicate. And we want you to read the stuff that we're putting out there so you stay on top of your game. And also, Twitter accounts that are important are going to be MS Edge Dev and also MS Edge Dev Tools for our F12 tools. Make sure you follow those guys and ping them if you have questions. We will answer. And my Twitter handle is ReyBango, like B-A-N-G-O, B-A-N, yeah, okay. All right, another cheap laugh. You guys didn't laugh. That's it. I'm done. Anyways, no, seriously, ping these guys, ping me. We're available, and we're willing to help you guys out with whatever you need. And most of all, thank you today for giving us the opportunity to kind of show you about Microsoft Edge.
Thank you, Ray.